Introduction. The kitchen table in a quiet house at 5 in the morning looks like a peaceful island. The wood is cool and smooth. There are no crumbs, no sticky circles from juice boxes, and no piles of mail. In this early light, the house feels like a place where anything is possible. You can sip your coffee and imagine the day ahead. You tell yourself that today will be the day you stay calm. Today, you will be the kind of parent who handles every spill and every shout with a gentle smile. Shift the clock forward 12 hours. The same kitchen table is now a site of total war. A glass of milk has just tipped over, sending a white river toward the edge of the wood. One child is screaming because their brother touched their sleeve. The dog is barking at the back door. You feel a heat rising in your chest. It starts in your stomach and climbs up to your throat. Before you can think, before you can stop it, the sound comes out. You are yelling. Your voice is loud, sharp, and scary. The room goes silent. Your children look at you with wide, startled eyes. In that moment, the peace of the morning feels 1,000 miles away. You aren't the parent you wanted to be. You are a thermometer. When the room gets hot, you get hot. When the kids get loud, you get louder. You are simply reacting to the chaos around you, and it feels like you have no choice in the matter. The cycle of the 6 p.m. explosion. Most parents live in a loop. It starts with a stressful moment, moves into a loud reaction, and ends with a heavy cloud of guilt. You spend your evening feeling like a failure. You look at your sleeping children and wish you could take back the words you said or the tone you used. You promise yourself you'll do better tomorrow. But when tomorrow comes, the same triggers pull the same strings. This isn't because you are a bad parent. It isn't because you don't love your kids. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do: protect you from a threat. To your brain, a screaming toddler or a defiant teenager feels like a physical attack. Your lizard brain takes over, and your ability to think clearly or act with kindness disappears. You feel trapped. You see other parents on social media who seem to have it all together, and you wonder what secret they know that you don't. You read parenting books that tell you to just be patient, but those books don't seem to work when you're standing in a puddle of milk at the end of a long day. The truth is that patience isn't a magic gift some people are born with. It is a skill built on a very specific foundation: the pause. The promise of the thermostat. This book is about changing who you are in those heated moments. You are going to move from being a thermometer to being a thermostat. A thermometer is a tool that only records what is happening. If the room is 90 degrees, the thermometer says it's 90 degrees and gets just as hot as the air around it. It has no power to change the environment. It is a victim of the weather. A thermostat is different. A thermostat senses the heat, but instead of getting hot itself, it kicks on the cooling system. It stays steady. It decides what the temperature of the room should be. It takes charge of the environment. By the time you finish these chapters, you will have the tools to set the emotional temperature of your home. You will learn how to catch yourself before the yell starts. You will understand how to build a connection with your child that is so strong it can survive any tantrum. You will be able to lead your family with a sense of calm authority, even when things are going wrong. You will stop being a victim of your child's moods and start being the anchor they need. Why this works? We aren't going to talk about tricks to get your kids to behave. We are going to talk about the science of the human brain and the power of the human spirit. Everything in this book is backed by the work of people who have studied how we think and how we connect. We will look at how our nervous systems talk to each other. We will explore why your child's brain literally cannot listen when they are upset, and why your brain cannot teach when you are angry. The pause isn't a mystical idea. It is a neurological bridge. It is the 3 seconds that change everything. It is the space where you stop being a person who reacts and start being a person who chooses. We know this works because it has worked in the hardest places on earth. We will learn from people who found peace in the middle of war, and doctors who found ways to heal the deepest hurts. If these ideas can work in those places, they can work in your living room. Meeting Sarah. Sarah knows exactly how that kitchen floor feels. Sarah is a pediatric nurse. She spends her days at the hospital taking care of sick children. She is calm under pressure. She knows how to handle a medical emergency without blinking. Doctors and parents at the hospital look at her as a rock. She is the person everyone turns to when things get scary. But at 5:30 p.m., Sarah pulls her SUV into her driveway and sits there with her hands on the steering wheel. She calls this the pre-entry dread. She knows what is waiting for her on the other side of the front door. Her 4-year-old son Leo will likely be mid-meltdown because he's hungry. Her 7-year-old daughter Maya will want help with homework that she doesn't want to do. The house will be messy, the mail will be piled up, and Sarah's own energy will be at zero. Sarah feels like a fraud. How can she be so good at her job and so bad at being a mom? At work, she is the thermostat. At home, she is a thermometer that is about to burst. Last night, she yelled so loud that Leo hid behind the couch. After the kids went to bed, Sarah sat on her bed and scrolled through parenting forums for 3 hours, looking for an answer. She felt a deep, heavy guilt that made it hard to breathe. She loves her kids more than anything, but she feels like she is losing them. She feels like every yell is a brick in a wall she is accidentally building between herself and her children. Sarah is the character we will follow. Her struggles are real and her house is loud. She is starting from a place of burnout and shame. But she is about to discover that the power to change her home isn't found in a new chore chart or a stricter punishment. It is found in the pause. The path ahead. The journey we are taking together is divided into steps that will help you rebuild your home from the inside out. We will begin by looking at the power of the pause. We will learn from the life of a man named Viktor Frankl, who found that our greatest freedom is the space between what happens to us and how we respond. You will learn how to find those few seconds of freedom, even when the glitter is all over the carpet. We will go deep into the why. You will discover why your children seem to know exactly which buttons to push. You might be surprised to find out that those buttons were actually installed long ago, and they have very little to do with your kids and a lot to do with your own history. We will talk about the lizard brain. We'll see how a discovery about mirror neurons explains why your child's anger feels like it is jumping into your own body. You will learn how to use your own calm to infect your child, rather than letting their chaos infect you. We will explore the repair bridge. This is perhaps the most important part of the book. You will learn that being a great parent isn't about being perfect. It's about what you do after you make a mistake. We will look at a beautiful Japanese tradition that shows how things can be stronger and more beautiful at the places where they once broke. We will look at the practical side of things, too. We'll talk about how to handle the hangry hours of the evening and how to get through bedtime without losing your mind. We will even talk about why being kind to yourself is the only way to be truly kind to your kids. By the end, we will look at how to play the long game. We aren't just trying to get through Tuesday night. We are trying to raise adults who are kind, strong, and emotionally smart. The car is in the driveway. The sun is setting. The 6 p.m. explosion is waiting. But this time, things are going to be different. You are about to find the space between the spark and the flame. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Mastering the Power of the Pause. The heat starts in the back of your neck. It moves up like a slow wave, turning your ears red and making your chest feel tight. Your heart beats against your ribs like a trapped bird. You can feel the words bubbling up in your throat, sharp, loud words that you know will hurt. You don't want to say them. You promised yourself this morning that today would be different. But the milk is soaking into the rug, the toddler is laughing, and the older child is complaining about the wrong color socks. The pressure is too much. You open your mouth, and the yell comes out before you can stop it. This is the moment of the explosion. For many parents, it feels like a reflex, like blinking when something flies toward your eye. It happens so fast that you don't even think. One second you are fine, and the next, you are the person you said you would never be. You feel like a monster. As the yell echoes in the quiet room, the heat turns into a cold, heavy weight in your stomach. That weight is guilt. It tells you that you are failing. It tells you that you are breaking your children. Sarah knew this feeling better than anyone. She spent her days as a pediatric nurse, staying calm while children cried and parents panicked. She was the person everyone looked to when things went wrong at the hospital. But the moment she pulled into her own driveway at 6 p.m., that calm person disappeared. She would sit in her car for 3 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She dreaded walking through the front door. She knew that within an hour, she would be screaming about chicken nuggets or bath toys. She felt like a fraud. She was a professional who helped kids stay healthy, yet she couldn't keep her own house peaceful. The man who found freedom in a cage. In the middle of the last century, a man named Viktor Frankl found himself in a place far worse than a messy kitchen. He was a doctor and a thinker, but he was stripped of everything. He was sent to a Nazi concentration camp. He lost his home, his clothes, and his family. He was hungry, cold, and treated like he was not even a human being. The people in charge of the camp tried to break his spirit every single day. They wanted him to react with hate or to give up entirely. While he was there, Frankl noticed something strange. Some men gave up and died quickly. Others stayed kind. They shared their tiny pieces of bread. They comforted others. Frankl started to wonder why some people could stay human, while everything around them was inhuman. He realized that the guards could take away his shoes. They could take away his food. They could even take away his name and give him a number. But there was one thing they could never touch. They could not take away his power to choose how he felt about what was happening to him. Frankl discovered a space. He said that between the thing that happens to you and your reaction to it, there is a tiny gap of time. In that gap, you have the power to choose your response. He believed that our growth and our happiness live in that tiny space. If we just react, we are like animals or machines. But if we use that space to stop and think, we become the masters of our own lives. This idea is the heartbeat of the parenting pause. For a parent, the thing that happens might be a spilled drink or a child saying, "I hate you." The reaction is usually the yell. Most of us live our lives as if there is no space at all. We think the yell is caused by the spill. But Frankl's life proves that the spill doesn't cause the yell. The yell comes because we haven't learned how to find the space in between. The thermometer versus the thermostat. To understand how to use this space, we have to look at two different tools we use to measure heat. Imagine a thermometer. Its only job is to tell you how hot or cold the room is. If the room gets hot, the red line in the thermometer goes up. If the room gets cold, the line goes down. The thermometer has no choice. It is a slave to the air around it. It just reacts. When we parent like a thermometer, we are just reflecting our child's mood. If our child is screaming and hot, we get hot and scream back. If they are grumpy, we get grumpy. We are letting a 4-year-old decide the mood of the entire house. Now, imagine a thermostat. A thermostat is different. It doesn't just react to the heat, it sets the temperature. If the room gets too hot, the thermostat clicks on the cooling system to bring it back to a comfortable level. It stays steady. It has a goal, and it works to keep the environment at that goal no matter what is happening outside. The goal of the parenting pause is to move from being a thermometer to being a thermostat. When the heat in your house rises, when the kids are fighting or the homework isn't getting done, a thermostat parent doesn't just rise with them. They notice the heat, they find that space Viktor Frankl talked about, and they choose a response that brings the temperature back down. Sarah and the glitter disaster. Sarah decided to try finding this space on a Tuesday evening. She was tired from a long shift at the hospital. She had just finished vacuuming the living room, which felt like a huge win. She went into the kitchen to start dinner. A few minutes later, she heard a strange, rhythmic shish-shish sound coming from the living room. She walked in and stopped. Her 4-year-old son, Leo, had found a large container of blue glitter. He wasn't just playing with it, he was feeding the rug. There was a thick, sparkling layer of blue dust covering the area she had just cleaned. It was in the fibers of the carpet. It was on the legs of the coffee table. It was even on the dog. Sarah felt the wave of heat. Her face got hot. Her hands balled into fists. Her thermometer was shooting straight to the top. She felt the yell coming. Why would you do this? I just cleaned. Do you know how hard I work? But then she remembered the man in the camp. She remembered the space. She didn't say anything. She didn't move. She just stood there. She took one long breath. She felt the urge to scream, and she just watched it like a car passing by on the street. She waited for 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, she realized that Leo wasn't trying to be bad. He looked up at her with big proud eyes and said, "Look, Mommy. I made the floor pretty like the ocean." Because she paused, her thermostat kicked in. She saw a curious little boy instead of a naughty child. The heat in her chest started to go down. The stop, she froze her body so she wouldn't act on her anger. The breath, she used her breath to tell her brain that there was no real danger. The choice, she decided to use a calm voice. "It is very sparkly, Leo," she said. Her voice was shaky, but it wasn't loud. "But glitter is for paper, not for the rug. Now we have a big job to do. We have to clean this up together." Leo's face didn't crumble. He didn't cry. He just nodded and reached for the dustpan. The 6 p.m. explosion didn't happen. The yell-guilt repeat cycle was broken for one night. Why the pause feels so hard? If the pause is so powerful, why don't we all do it every time? The answer is in your brain. When you get stressed, a tiny part of your brain called the amygdala takes over. Think of the amygdala like a smoke alarm. Its only job is to keep you safe. Millions of years ago, if a tiger was chasing you, your amygdala would make you run or fight without thinking. You didn't need to pause and think about the tiger's feelings. You just needed to survive. The problem is that your brain can't tell the difference between a tiger and spilled glitter. To your amygdala, both feel like an emergency. When it detects a threat, it shuts down the part of your brain that handles logic, patience, and kindness. It turns you into a thermometer instantly. Mindfulness is not about sitting on a mountain and thinking about nothing. In parenting, mindfulness is the act of noticing when your smoke alarm is going off. It is the ability to say to yourself, "My heart is racing and I feel angry. But there is no tiger. It's just glitter." When you do this, you are building a muscle. The more you find that space, the stronger that muscle gets. At first, you might only find the space after you yell. That's okay. You might say, "I shouldn't have yelled. I went too fast." That is still progress. Later, you might find the space while you are yelling. You might stop mid-sentence. Eventually, you will find the space before the yell even starts. The 3 pillars of the pause. To make the pause work, you need a framework. You can't just hope to be calm, you need a plan for when the heat rises. The pause is built on 3 simple pillars. 1. Physical stillness. Your body and your mind are connected. When you are angry, your body wants to move. You might stomp, wave your arms, or lean over your child to look bigger. This movement tells your brain that you are in a fight. To find the pause, you must learn to freeze. When the trigger happens, keep your hands at your sides. Don't move toward the child. Stay still. This physical stop sends a signal to your brain that says, "We are not in a fight. We are safe." 2. The language of the body. Instead of thinking about what your child is doing, think about what your body is feeling. Is your jaw tight? Are your shoulders up by your ears? Name the feeling in your head. Say, "I am feeling very frustrated right now." When you name a feeling, you move the activity in your brain from the smoke alarm part to the thinking part. This is like turning down the volume on a loud radio. 3. The 3-second rule: silence is your greatest tool. When a child does something wrong, our instinct is to fix it or punish it immediately. We think we have to act fast. But almost nothing in parenting is an actual emergency. The glitter can wait. The attitude can wait. If you can wait just 3 seconds before you speak, you give your logic a chance to catch up with your emotions. Those 3 seconds are where your freedom lives. The power of the pause in the real world. The pause isn't just about avoiding yells. It's about what you build instead. When you pause, you show your child that you are a safe person. You show them that your love is bigger than their mistakes. Think about a bridge. Every time you yell, you knock a few stones off the bridge between you and your child. Over time, the bridge gets weak. The child starts to hide things from you. They stop coming to you when they are sad because they are afraid of the heat. But every time you pause, you are strengthening the bridge. You are showing them how to handle their own big feelings by modeling it yourself. Sarah noticed a change in her house after just 1 week of trying the pause. It wasn't that her kids stopped being messy or loud. They were still 4 and 7 years old. They still fought over the remote. They still forgot to put their shoes away. The difference was Sarah. Because she was acting like a thermostat, the house felt cooler. When she didn't jump into the fight with her own anger, the fights ended faster. Her daughter, who used to hide in her room when she saw Sarah's face get red, started staying in the kitchen to talk more. The pre-entry dread Sarah felt in the car started to fade. She realized she wasn't afraid of her kids, she was afraid of her own reactions. Once she knew she had the power to pause, she wasn't afraid anymore. Using the tool today. You don't need to wait for a level 10 inches meltdown to practice this. In fact, it is better to practice when things are small. If you drop a spoon, pause for 3 seconds before you pick it up. If you hit a red light while driving, use that time to take 1 deep breath and stay still. If your child asks for a snack for the 10th time, name your feeling. I am feeling a little impatient. These small moments are like lifting light weights at the gym. They prepare you for the heavy lifting. The moments when the glitter is on the rug and the dog is barking and the phone is ringing. Viktor Frankl's discovery was not just about surviving a camp. It was about the dignity of being human. We are the only creatures on Earth that can choose how we respond to the world around us. A dog will always bark at a mailman. A cat will always hiss at a vacuum. But a human can look at a mess, feel the anger, and choose to be kind. This choice is the most powerful tool you have as a parent. It is the missing link that turns all the parenting books you've read into real-world action. You don't need more rules. You don't need a better chore chart. You just need to find the space. The space is always there. It is hiding between the spill and the scream. It is waiting for you in the quiet moment after a door slams. It is small, but it is big enough to change your entire family. When we find that space, we stop being victims of our own stress. We stop being thermometers that just react to the weather. We become the ones who set the temperature. We become the leaders our children need. It starts with 1 breath. It starts with 3 seconds. It starts with the realization that even in the middle of the chaos, you are free to choose who you want to be. This freedom is like a seed. In this chapter, we have planted it. We have looked at how to stop the hot reaction and find the cool pause. But why do our children push us toward that red line in the first place? Why does their behavior feel like a personal attack? To truly master the thermostat, we have to look deeper into why we get so hot so fast. The pause is the how. We will look at the why. We will see how a simple look on a parent's face can change a child's brain forever, and why your child's most annoying behaviors might actually be a cry for help. Just like the space between stimulus and response, there is a hidden language in your child's behavior that you are finally ready to hear. Chapter 2: Why does your child know exactly which buttons to push? In the late 1970s, a young researcher named Edward Tronick sat in a small room at the University of Massachusetts. He wasn't trying to change the way the world looked at children. He wasn't trying to become a famous name in parenting books. He was just a man with a heavy video camera and a simple question: what happens between a mother and her baby when they are just sitting together? At the time, many people thought babies were like little sponges that just sat there and soaked up milk and sleep. They didn't think babies had a social life or deep feelings. Tronick suspected something else. He watched through his lens as mothers played with their infants. It was a beautiful dance. The mother would smile, and the baby would kick its legs. The baby would point, and the mother would look. They were in sync, like two musicians playing the same song. But then, Tronick decided to try something that felt a bit mean. He asked the mothers to do something very difficult. He asked them to play with their babies for a minute, and then, on his signal, to stop. He told them to make their faces go blank. No smiles, no frowns, no words. Just a still face. He thought the babies might just look away or go back to playing with their toes. He was wrong. What happened next changed the way we understand the human brain forever. It also explains exactly why your 7-year-old seems to know the perfect way to make you lose your mind right before dinner. The 3 minutes that changed everything. When the mothers in Tronick's study stopped reacting, the babies didn't just ignore them. At first, the babies tried to get the song started again. They smiled bigger. They reached out their tiny hands. They pointed at things in the room as if to say, "Hey, look at that. Aren't we playing?" When the mother stayed still, the baby's mood shifted fast. The smiles turned into confused looks. Then came the screeching. The babies began to arch their backs and cry. They looked away, then looked back, desperate for a spark of connection. In just 2 minutes, these babies were completely falling apart. Their little nervous systems were screaming because the person they relied on for safety had become a stone wall. Tronick realized that connection isn't just a nice-to-have thing for kids. It is a survival need. When that connection is broken, the brain sends out a red alert. This is the secret behind the buttons your child pushes. Most of us think our kids are being manipulative. We think they are sitting in their rooms planning how to make us angry. We tell our friends, "He knows exactly what he's doing." But the truth is much simpler and much more biological. Your child isn't trying to push your buttons. They are trying to find your on switch. When they feel disconnected from you, maybe because you are busy, tired, or stressed, they start poking you. If a smile doesn't get a reaction, they try a whine. If a whine doesn't work, they try a scream. If a scream doesn't work, they might throw a toy. To a child's brain, a bad reaction from you is still better than no reaction at all. In their world, your anger is still a form of connection. It's a loud, scary form, but it's better than this still face. Sarah's discovery in the kitchen. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, her head in her hands. It was Tuesday evening, and she felt like she had just finished a boxing match. Her 4-year-old Leo had spent the last hour talking back. Every time she asked him to put his shoes away or sit down for dinner, he had a sharp answer. "You're not the boss of me," he had said, staring her right in the eye. Sarah felt that familiar heat rising in her chest. Her heart started to beat faster. Her face got hot. Before she knew it, she was yelling. She sounded like a different person. She sounded like her own father, who used to demand total silence at the dinner table. Later that night, after the house was finally quiet, Sarah pulled out a notebook. She thought about the still face experiment. She realized that during the 6 p.m. explosion, she wasn't really present with Leo. She was moving dishes, checking her work phone, and thinking about tomorrow's schedule. To Leo, she might as well have been the mother with the blank face in the study. He wasn't talking back because he was a mean kid. He was talking back because he felt her drifting away. He was throwing verbal rocks at her to get her to look at him. And it worked. She looked at him, but she looked with fire in her eyes. Sarah wrote down one sentence in her journal: "His behavior is an SOS, not an attack." She also realized something even deeper. Why did the talking back bother her so much? Other things like spilled milk or a messy room didn't make her explode like this. But the moment Leo challenged her authority, she flipped her lid. This was her trigger. It wasn't about Leo's behavior. It was about